Welcome to Fintech Daydreaming, the podcast that dives into the world of banking technologies and the ever-changing landscape of fintech companies. We bring you real-life examples from global and local thought leaders, as well as experts working within the financial industry, and seek out the best stories from the front lines of financial services innovation, where dreams of industry pioneers meet reality. Hosted by Krogdahl and Ville Sointu. This is Fintech Daydreaming.
Hello again and welcome back to Fintech Daydreaming. I have to apologize. I did have a fantastically husky voice in our last episode, and as predicted by Ville, it did turn out to be COVID. So not only have I spent 2 weeks feeling sorry for myself, I am a man. Man flu is even worse with COVID, I can promise you. But I've got a horrendous cough. So if I should happen to suddenly fall off my chair, start coughing, Ville will jump in and rescue the day. But we will see how well this goes and have a fantastic discussion. So again, as always, I'm here, and with me I've got Ville. Ville, how is life with you? I hope you don't have COVID.
Yeah, no, not so far. A few scares and a few flus here, but always negative tests during those things. So been lucky so far, and I'm glad to see you're getting a little bit better at least. I think your really husky voice in the last episode was a little bit scary, and yeah, like you said, it turned out to be COVID. But good to see you recovering slowly but surely.
I have been told repeatedly that a husky voice is apparently sexy, so you know. I have to rely on that, but the chances are, I think these days, it looks like eventually everybody's going to get it one way or another, whether you've been vaccinated once, twice, 3 times, whatever the case is, right? So I can say I'm actually partly infuriated by this. I unfortunately gave it to my son, and it took him 3 days to recover. I've spent 2 weeks trying to recover. I still have a cough. My son got it, coughed a little bit, didn't even get fever, right? And then recovered. So yeah, it obviously, the younger you are, the easier it is. But COVID aside, I really want us today, Ville, to have a discussion around the real platformification of banking. We're going back into this again. We've talked in the past around, banking platforms. But even more importantly, there is a fantastic growth of banking as a service, where organizations build a banking platform, they make it available to a plethora of users, but then also bring in banking license capabilities to enable non-banking entities to run banking capabilities. It's almost like these days, bank, no bank, we can unconsciously do banking, look after our money, run our financial life. And it doesn't really matter anymore whether you've got that relationship with a bank, whether you have to go into a branch or anything else. And one of the, I won't say leaders, or maybe I should say leaders in this space, is Bankable. And we've got Eric with us here today, who is the brainchild and the founder of Bankable. So Eric, fantastic to have you here with us. But maybe for the very few who haven't been following Bankable and your history, why don't you give the listeners, as I'm about to cough, an intro to who you are and your background?
So yes, sure. So thank you for having me on your show today. So I'm Eric Mouilleron, I'm the CEO and founder of Bankable. So Bankable is not my first company. So I've already set up a company back in the 90s that went public 6 years after inception. So that company was more working on agile methodologies at the very beginning, Java. So we did the first Java project. And in fact, after all these projects that I've done for banks or corporates, there was a lot of space to find, in fact, a huge opportunity I saw to leverage platforms as opposed to bespoke development one by one. So I think the creation of Bankable was quite early. It was we were a bit before fintech, so it was maybe we were created 3 or 4 years before the fintech word was coined by a journalist. And I think what we do is pretty simple. We help fintech, challenge incumbents, and we help as well incumbents to retaliate against fintech. So we are in both companies, in both sides of the coins, and that's quite important for fintech clients as well as for banks, because they need something agile. They want to go to market quickly. So it's all about time to market. So we federated under one asset, an account management system, a processing engine, as well as a payment, as a service infrastructure, plus an API orchestration, so we can plug KYC, we can plug all the necessary, asset you need to build a bank on the side. So what's important here is on the side, because we operate as well, we design and operate the platform. So we operate on the private cloud as well as on the cloud, depending on the client. And in fact, I know that the tradition of your show is to have a little joke at the beginning. So I'm not sure it's a big joke, but in 2012, I branded the company the friendliest fintech to incumbents. So that was quite early, actually, because it took the incumbents maybe half a decade to wake up, and now we're seeing the benefit of this vision. But quite frankly, back in 2012, all our fintech colleagues hated us because they all thought that banks would disappear a few quarters later. And all the banks laughed at us because they were, just a handful of fintech at the time, maybe a few dozen or 100 maybe. And now we're talking about 20,000 fintechs. So it's not laughable anymore. It's real. And there's some that will, I believe, become like in the precedent wave of internet wave, there will be some companies that will become the Amazon, PayPal of the world. So it's not going to be for everyone, but some will succeed. So our view is to we are an enabler. So we enable disruptors. Disruptors, it's not the privilege of fintech. I think we've got within large banks some innovators that are in fact intrapreneurs, as we call them, who are here to in fact challenge the statu quo and try to make things happen. So I think there's not two worlds for me. It's important that we work with both. At the end of the day, we want to create showcase for our client that they can not only show internally but generalize. So it's the generalization that is important to us. On the fintech side, one of our clients is now a unicorn since yesterday. So I think it's a big success. They went from 0 to almost 4,000 SME clients across Europe. And as a company, we definitely focus on the cross-border initiative. We want to, because we have a single asset that we can adapt to multiple jurisdiction and multiple, in fact, regulation. So I think we'll come to that a bit later, but the way we define banking as a service, in fact, it's if you take a quadrant, for me, they are the ones that are regulated, the ones that are not regulated, and as well the ones that have proprietary technology and the one who have outsourced technology. So we are not regulated and we own our technology. So that puts us in a very rare position, but it's a good position to serve regulated entities, because if we were regulated, we'll have difficulties to work with large banks, and we do that today. So yes, so in a nutshell, that's what we do. We serve as well some corporates. And I think you've mentioned a bit earlier, bank or no bank, there is always a bank in fintech, right? So there's always a bank, there's always a regulated entity somewhere to support fintech. So the early days of fintech renegades, fighting the world, we're going to prevail and the banks will disappear. This is a fantasy. There is always, we're always, for the moment, with crypto, we'll see what happens, but it's always about protecting our clients' fund, being regulated. And so Bankable, we're regulated by proxy, not by, so in fact, it's the same constraints, but we don't, in fact, we are not regulated for the reason I've mentioned. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that's one of the things that we've talked about quite often, Ville, on our episodes, is the fact that it doesn't matter whether you are a fintech off looking at cryptocurrencies and blockchain and all that fantastic, disruptive, let's build our own new world that has nothing to do with the banks, or whether you're a large bank. At the end of the day, it comes down to working within inside of a regulated industry. And like you said, very truly, Eric, at the end of the day, something has to connect back to an entity that holds the regulated license. Otherwise, you cannot operate in this domain. which, you're saying you sit almost neutrally between the fintechs and the large banks. Where is your main majority of clients today? Is it the fintechs or is it the large banks?
Today, it's, I would say, 2/3 or 70% fintech and 30% banks and corporates. This is going to change, I think, in the next couple of years. Will be more 50-50 over time, because we are in a position with certain banks to generalize the service we've done in one division. So it's going to be deployed in other countries, other banks within the same group. So which is always the vision we have. We want to work with few clients in depth and make sure that we create an impact because I think our clients, they are here to create an impact for themselves, for their shareholder, either banks or fintech. It's the same behavior, actually. It's people who are proud of what they do, they love what they do, and it's all about growing, from A to Z, basically, creating something that makes sense. So I think it's for us, it's very clear that we have, of course, the difficulty is focus. I always say that focus is good for rich company. When you're rich, you can focus. So when you are a startup, it's better not to focus too much. But now we have to streamline what we do. We need to do less things, but with more depth and in multiple countries. That's where we stand today.
Some of the banking as a service providers like Starling Bank comes to mind, for example. I mean, they obviously have a full banking license. Now, it sounds like you have a bit of a different strategy. So how do you compare a fully licensed banking as a service provider compared to the approach that you have?
So in fact, we took the problem differently. So we built an account management system, a processing engine. We built a platform that we can connect to multiple banks. So in fact, Starling, they've got, in fact, when you're a bank, you need a balance sheet, right? So I think all the money they raise, it's a lot goes to their balance sheet. So in our case, we've been very, very capital efficient. We've managed to put all the money in the technology. And in terms of license, we are connected to multiple EMIs, and we're connected as well to Warburg Pincus funded Ion Bank in Belgium. So we can, it's a credit institution with a real balance sheet. And in fact, with this model, we can attract large corporates. We won this year, we signed a 10-year contract with PaySafe in multiple countries. That's Bankable and Ion Bank together, joining forces to serve a global client. So it's more like it's less a monolithic approach. It's more, and in fact, Ion Bank, they can help us only in Europe. They can't help us in the US. They can't help us in the UK. And Starling, it's a UK Ireland, basically. So I think, our model can expand scale globally because we are not regulated. So we can add banks to our portfolio. Where if you're a bank, of course, the focus is to remain regulated, keep your ratio the right way, and make sure you don't get a fine. So it's not the same. It's for certain clients, it works very well to be regulated, like Starling Bank or Solaris Bank, mainly for fintech. For banks, it doesn't work at all. Banks will never onboard another bank to provide technology.
So maybe it would help actually in this context to define what we mean by banking as a service. There is an awful lot of different as a service models available today, all the way from software as a service, platform as a service, application as a service. We're now talking about banking as a service. So from a bankable perspective, how do you define banking as a service?
So I think the way we define that is we have a one-stop contract. So with one contract, we can provide all the service to a fintech or a bank to provide, a bank on the side. So I think, so of course, if you are regulated, which is not our case, you can create an instance of your own regulation. In our case, we need to be the ambassador of the business case of our client with the banking partners we have. So I think that the definition is to create accounts, make payments, move money, everything that all the basic function that a bank should do. That's something we can build and operate ourselves, basically. So I think for our client. So I think there's in fact multiple in fact, the problem is that there's banking as a service for fintech. So there's a group of companies doing that. Banking as a service for banks, it's a different group, basically. And there we are less numerous. There's less people doing that because there's probably, until recently, there was a bit less demand. But this is massively changing. And I think the surprise we have is that we have big requests from big banks, where we thought we would attract more tier 2, tier 3 banks. I think we will persist doing that. But so banking as a service, it's a way to create for a corporate or for a non-regulated entity, something regulated to support a new business case and generate new net revenue, customer satisfaction, and enhance the existing business case that our clients have. So what I always say is that we are as good as the business case as our client. Yeah, I mean, we're not magicians. We can transform a bad business case into a good business case, and we tend to focus on organizations who already have distribution. So scale up if they want to upgrade their stack. We're always here to help. A bank who wants to create an SME banking or a new. In fact, the last 4 years, all the banks came to us, do me a Revolut. Yeah, that was the they all ask us, so because we can provide a multi-currency stack. It was made for that. The platform we have. So, I mean, I would say there's not as many banking as a service as there are banking as a service companies, but there's different categories for different kind of clients. And I think we plan to serve more and more large banks and more large scale-ups and corporates. For us, it feeds each other. Yeah, we don't want to specialize in one category of just startups. We do very few startups, quite frankly.
So the important element here is the fact that you operate in a model where your clients bring their own banking license. You do not provide the banking license, as for instance, Starlin does in their banking as a service offering.
So yes and no. We don't provide our own banking license, but we provide by proxy some long-term partnership we have with different banks. Or if it's a bank, in fact, if it's a bank, we're unlikely to use their license. We'll always use somebody else's license. And then over time, we might or might not migrate. Because what we're trying to demonstrate is time to market, not the fact that they can use the license.
Right.
Yeah, and that will slow down things, actually, if we were to do that. So, yeah.
So let's play a hypothetical scenario here then, just very quickly. I mean, Ville and I have toyed with the idea multiple times of creating the Fintech Daydreaming Bank. If we were to say, now, this is what we're going to do, and Eric, you've got a fantastic solution here. Let us partner with you and go off and build the bank. What else do we need? Or do you actually deliver everything to us in a box that will enable us to very quickly send off a speedboat and have an up and running bank within 3 months, including a license? Or are we still looking at a long process where we also need to partner with additional players?
No, I think today, I think what you would need is to build your own front end and consumer APIs. But before we start, I will grill you on your forecast, your business case, because we signed 5 to 10 year contract. If I'm not comfortable today, I won't be comfortable in 5 years, and our remuneration is linked to your success, right? So I think it's the opposite of a traditional core banking vendor or software vendor. They charge as much as they can upfront because they're going to fail. In our case, it's reverse. We charge very little at the beginning, but it's more something incremental that will grow with the transaction. Yeah. So I think we'll spend a lot of time to talk about the business, and if we believe it's not profitable, we will let you know. Okay, we're not going to charge you for something so you need to tune your business case. Yeah, so I think it's a business discussion. It's not an IT discussion. And then what you would need is today you'll need to probably own your brand and distribution, because I think we work with customers where they want to own their brand and distribution, which is great, which means that you will need to do your own front end, consuming our API. In 2022, this year, we are planning to launch a few white label solutions, because I think we believe the white label market is much larger than the API market. The API market is for cool people, but there's less uncool people. There's more uncool people than cool people. So I think that there's some people who have massive distribution. There is no way they're going to do a front end. They'll never do that. Yeah. So I think we want to accommodate for both. Yeah. But in effect, yes, we'll sign a contract, and then you'll need us plus a front-end team to build your front-end. And then you need to, of course, operate. We'll operate for you, but you need to support your clients. We'll do the second line of support, and that's it. We're done. Yeah.
So you support clients, you support product definition and product development. You support the ledger, you support the CRM, you support...
Not the CRM. CRM we don't touch. It's
okay,
not
you don't
us.
touch the CRM. So we need a CRM provider here.
Yes.
Ville. We need a CRM provider. We need a front end. We've had some podcast episodes around the front end, so we know some good vendors there.
Good.
What about the payments and cards here? I mean, does Bankable also then give us the payments infrastructure, the connection to the payments rails and the card infrastructure?
Yes. We'll provide you access to SEPA Instant, faster payment, ACH in the US. So all the payment method you want. On the card side, we are connected to Visa, MasterCard. We process card and payments. And I think we are connected to Thales and IDEMIA globally with all their factories, so we can issue wherever you want. And that's all under our remit. So I think you can, as I said before, just focus on your brand distribution, and we'll do the rest. Yeah. And if one day you're very successful, you can become regulated or not. Actually, we have clients who don't become regulated. It's not a necessity. So I think it's something that it always comes after success. I mean, there's a lot of companies who start being regulated, but then what? When they're regulated, they have no money, no business case. They just have a license. I mean, if you met a few regulators, I met quite a few. I won't give any names, but usually their first question is, "How are you going to make money?" So in fact, that's a very pragmatic question because they want regulated entity to make money, or at least to have a path to make money one day.
So now that we're talking about due diligence and validating that the business case is there, the technical capabilities are there, and you have an understanding of the business that you're entering. Now, the one thing that of course needs to be there is the regulatory part as well. Even though you might not be licensed, I would suppose that the type of business you're entering has a weighing in whether you will accept these customers or not. And of course, what I'm going to ask you next is that I want to start a offshore cryptocurrency exchange and use your platform to get access to banking services. Now, how would that work out?
You had to go there, Ville, didn't you? You had to go there.
So no, I think our limitation is the appetite of our regulated entity, and currently on crypto, it's none. It's changing. It's going to change because most regulators, they don't want to be the last one. Yeah, and there's some major regulators who are starting to open the doors. So I think it's an ongoing discussion. But in fact, in this case, we will not even present your case to the bank or to any regulated entity. But you're right. So in this case, we would not have onboarded you as a business case. But let's say it's a business case we like. Next step, as your ambassador, we'll pitch your business and your team to the bank, and we'll do a KYB on your business, on you. So we start with compliance. We start always with bad news. And then if we go through that, we're done. Yeah, but it's we don't chat forever and get excited and then oops, compliance says no. So no, I think it's compliance needs to say not only yes, but we need to create a dynamic with our issuers or with our banks, so they're excited themselves. Yeah, so usually it's the personality of the founders, the quality of the business case, and the experience of the founder, and I would say the enthusiasm. I mean, everyone wants to see enthusiasm and something original. So I think there's a lot, of course, of Me Too, the same project. And, there's hundreds of different Revolut, but there's only one Revolut. But what's changing now is we see recently some very, very interesting business cases who are not Me Too's. So it's usually people who don't understand anything about payment, cards, but that's not the problem. So we should not read should listen to them because they have a business that we don't know, and they know, and it's usually a strong business case where they will need us more than ever to, in fact, translate this payment world into their world. Yeah, so that we see ourselves a bit like translator between the client and our world, and as well the regulated entity. But I think we are extremely humble in this approach because it's like recruitment. Sometimes you meet someone shy, you don't know if he's going to be a good employee or not, and usually he's going to shine. Where the guy who shines at interview, he disappears after a few weeks. So it's the same thing here. We need to build trust and relationship very early at the beginning. And of course, as you know, there's people you can have lunch with and others you can't. So I think we're not here to suffer. Yeah, we are here to help people that are already helping themselves.
Are you, sorry, Ville, I think you were going to say something?
No, just go ahead.
I was going to ask though, now that Ville came into the subject of regulations, are you finding that as a banking as a service provider, you're getting additional scrutiny from regulators? I mean, the regulators are struggling to get a grasp on this whole new sort of industry and way of working. How are you guys finding working with the regulators?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be provocative, but I like regulators. This is why I've entered this business. It's people who don't like regulators, they should change business. You can do pizzas, French fries. There's no need for regulation. Or so if you want to do what we do, I think you should enjoy the interface with the regulator. And in fact, more importantly, our goal as a company is to provide real-time reporting to the regulator at some point. So I think we want to anticipate their need. And so in some cases they're a bit late, but I think there's some smart people in all organizations, and they have a vision, and they report to the Ministry of Finance, so they've got to do their duty, and it's an important duty to protect the money of the citizens, basically. So I think it's for us. I'm a bit biased because we are a UK company, so I chose the UK because of the FCA, who was the most advanced regulator when we started. Yeah, so it's a regulator, a pro-business regulator. Yes, that inspired other regulators across the globe. So regulation is an opportunity. I don't see that as a threat. They are not here to punish. They are here to guide into something that would make sense and will help potentially our client make money. You know, if it's well, if they do their job properly. So I think it's I will never complain about regulation, or I will need to change a job. Yeah, so I think it's we have a compliance team that I really like, because they're very commercial. Our team, they really try to adapt to the business case, but they say no sometimes. Yeah, and when no is no. Yeah, so I think we've got currently a very good, purchase order from a client that is listed on the NASDAQ, but we can't onboard them for geographical reason. That's it. So it's of course I'm not too happy, but that's the rule. That's the game we're in. We have constraints. It's not an open lunch.
So Paul, it sounds like we got another check mark for our Fintech Daydreaming Bank, because we also love regulation. We actually had an episode dedicated to regulation just recently here on the show. So that's definitely something we share as a value. But one of the things, of course, for me as the the CTO of Fintech Daydreaming Bank now is that I'd like to expand all over the world now. How do you see the regulatory schemes, your partner banks around the world? Do you see the different regions being more complicated, some easier? What would be the low-hanging fruit for you, and what do you think is coming next in terms of geographic expansion for a partner network?
So I think for us, clearly the next step is the US. Yeah. For many reasons, I mean, the US, it's still 60% checks. Yeah, and the rest is cash. So there's, in fact, digital payment is nascent, despite the fact that Visa, MasterCard, they're all American, but on their home market, it's cash or check economy. So you're right. I mean, all regulators are different, but there's a, and I think the regulated entity is always the weakest link as well. So I think we are promoting a bank sponsorship model across the globe. What has helped us a lot recently is that instead of telling a bank, why don't we open, why don't we work together so we could build a fintech magnet for you, you could attract, now we have clients who are keen to be onboarded with these guys. So PaySafe, would you like to onboard PaySafe? That's an easier question than talking about bank sponsorship. So there is in the Commonwealth, of course, Canada, not in the US in the Commonwealth, but the FCA has been quite, innovative and with a lot of jurisdiction across the globe. I think for us, what we like is to merge all the constraints. The Germans have got their own constraints, the French they have their own constraints. So we try to always to make it bulletproof, so there's no surprise. Yes, and we try to see. Let's say if we were in a, we invent a country that where all the regulation will be together, and see if the business case will flow, because the regulation is going to be more and more stringent. It's the rule of that's normal. I don't see there's a lot of my fintech colleagues who hope that regulation will be more cool in the future. I mean, I don't see why, but you can live with hope that regulation will be inexistent one day, but I don't think it's going to be the case. So so I think there's a lot now of countries. So we have set up some subsidiaries in Singapore, in New York, in Dubai, in Canada. So that's already a big market for us, and we have a good reason to onboard. In fact, those banks in different regions is that we have global clients who would like to work on the one-stop contract model with us. And today they have 15, 20, 30 contracts, and it's a nightmare. Yeah, so I'm thinking about shipping companies, airlines. So, for example, we have a contract with Emirates Airlines where we provide them emergency cash 24/7, 365. So anytime there's an incident with in an airport, and we're in 156 airports, we can disburse instantly $1 million for the passenger, the crew, and all that. So in the past, it was the stewardess was going to the ATM to give cash to the passengers. Yeah, so it's a big change. So we want to focus on clients who have a big global needs, and they want something uniform, because if it's not uniform, that's going to cost them a fortune, and their customer service will be penalized. I think it won't be to the standard they want to reach. So I think we are definitely in a journey to add as many banks as we can as bank sponsors and clients, because if you look at it positively, it's we're in the good news category. We are here to bring them business. We're here for them to capture fintech flows. So it's a difficult message, but plus, in fact, we do that as well on the side. We don't need to integrate with their IT and all that. It's something we operate on the side. So we come with our own tools to support this fintech. So yeah, I think that's the answer to your question. I think there's countries where it's more difficult than others, not only for the regulation, but for the hosting. You have to host everything locally. There's always rules that we can work upon, but for us, what we don't want to do is to have one instance of our platform. We don't want to be in a country where we need to create a second instance. That will kill the whole platform effect. Yeah, right. And of course, big banks that came to us, we could give you a few $1 million, but we want our own bankable. We said no, because it's these guys, they don't understand what we're talking about. They want to replicate the world of the 80s, where each business user had their own IT. Yeah, so it's not standard. So I think that world, that's what I know well. I know what banks had actually for forever, because I started my career on an IBM 37XX on green screen. So I've got green screens jokes for all my clients, where they're quite surprised, but things work quite well. It works very well. It's just rigid. That's the problem. But and I think, unlike my other colleagues who were born with an iPhone in their cradle, I respect all the people who worked at banks doing things that were amazing at the time. But you can't look at the past with an iPhone. You know, iPhone is 10 years old. I mean, I love it. It's great, but I mean, what the generations of bankers or technologists have done is, I think, respectful. But of course, you need to renovate, and that's where the problem is. You know, if you change your core banking every 30 years, don't be surprised. It's like if you don't renovate your house for 30 years, you're going to have a problem. Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about the iPhones there for a minute, and the sort of journey from, I think the term is cathedrals of COBOL towards the more modern world of iPhones, etc. We are moving into a world of complementers, where organizations, platforms, banks, fintechs, it's all about how can we complement each other, how can we partner, how can we enrich the ecosystem. Is Bankable building an ecosystem of complementers that add additional capabilities onto the platform? And how do you see that progressing going forward?
Most definitely, the platform is the heartbeat. No, yeah. we've got a heartbeat, but then we have multiple arms like Vishnu. Then it's an ecosystem, and that's the thing that is exponential. So if we can scale our heartbeat, of course, we're going to add a local flavor in each country. There's some payment method in each country. There's some dominant, or there's some loyalty schemes locally, regionally, globally. So it's a global, local, regional ecosystem that we need to, in fact, consume and then repackage that for clients. So that's the one-stop platform. That's exactly it. That's where. So the more banks we have, the more ecosystem we can add, the more. And I think we need to look super local. You know, it's or regional. I think it's Visa and MasterCard, they are global, but there's a lot of very interesting companies in different countries that are domestic. Yeah, and I think we want to make sure that we partner with them so we can bring them business, and we can create customer satisfaction, and provide as well optionalities for our clients. This is what we're here for. It's not tell them this is the. In a way, it's a bit, this is the platform, use what we have if you want to achieve time to market. But at the same time, as a company, we want to, enrich the platform for clients to choose between one and B, or different, on KYB, on KYC, they should have options to build their own product, basically. It's like a questionnaire, and then after that, you generate your product. Because in fact, what we don't do, we don't integrate. Okay, that's very important. There's no integration. That's what we're changing. We configure a platform to the needs of our client, right? So it's always the same platform supporting multiple needs. So it's one instance of the same platform. It's not one project, another project. This is what we've changed, because I know in fact, I can tell you, I can't tell you the bank, but I was at the very beginning of algorithmic trading. So I did the first system on that. So there was a big bank in London and the same bank in New York. So we did the project in London in Java, and then in New York they said, "Can you do it on .NET?" I said, "No, why don't we do it on Java?" And okay, anyway, we did the two systems. So that's why Bankable was born as well, because why do two systems to serve the same business? And after 2 years, my business guy in New York explained that to me. Anyway, it's not about technology. I hate the guy in London, and I want to kill him. So I want to. So that's it. So I think those ego trip that does not serve the company and platform. It's a huge opportunity to rationalize, uniform, and for these big banks to focus not on politics but more on the business. Maybe maybe it's a better idea for their shareholders.
So it's sounding like Bankable is a multi-tenant, single instance environment almost.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Ville, you're sitting as a technologist inside of a regulated bank. I mean, what do you think when someone says, multi-tenant, single instant platform bank? There must be alarm bells suddenly, right?
Yeah. So a few acronyms come to mind, all related to risk management and compliance. And due diligence as well. So of course, the banks will ask a lot of questions about how the data is stored, how it's segregated from other licensed institutions, and how do you basically make sure that things don't really mix? How do you build the reporting capabilities, and how do you comply effectively to all the things we need to see in this? And this actually brings up a question which is relating to what you just said, is that in having worked for fintechs before in my career, I know that every time you go and say that we have a platform, we can configure it to your needs, but then it's never a match now, is it? So there was always going to be a lot of push to customize things or build new things you might be missing in the platform. How do you keep it together? I mean, how do you manage these conversations with these more difficult customers that are demanding all this customized functionality for whatever reasons that they might have?
So I've got a very precise answer to you, Ville. So first of all, we can experiment. We can do a pilot. So you can, it's like a car, you can test the car. Yeah, you don't need to buy the car. So, and that's how we won all our banks, because all our other competitors, you can't taste. You buy, and then you have to pray, and sometimes it works. So you leave the tunnel. But so that's one thing. Then what we tell all our clients, and this is very clear, we build a partnership. So it's the only mode where we can work. And in this partnership, this is a journey. So we're going to start year 1 doing that. Year 2 will add things. Year 3 will add things. So what you're describing is more a client who says, I want everything they want. So those guys will never do anything. So we'll run away. We will not do a second meeting, because it's another century. Yeah. So we've changed centuries. So if they don't get it, we can't help. We don't have the power to change people. We just have a platform here. So for that, we need to be 2 to tango. We need a client that we like, who understands we are doing a journey and not a magic stick where they get everything they want, like they're used to with integrators. Integrators, it's magic stick. Don't worry, pay me, give me the keys of the house, give me 100 million, you get everything in 3 years, and then 7 years later, nothing comes out. So anyway, so it's not what we do. So we need a relatively sophisticated buyer who understand the journey concept. Yeah, that and that's how we do it basically. Then it's a roadmap, and in some cases we can accelerate. And there's things we don't do. Actually, yeah, we don't do today or nor tomorrow. They need to find alternatives. So and so for us, if it's not in the perimeter, we should not do it. So we're very strict in terms of keeping becoming stronger in our own perimeter, and not do things that client force us to do. So I don't want to give you names, but we have a lot of colleagues who claim to have a platform, but they have as many platforms as they have clients. This is not our case.
Yeah, and then I'm going to come back to the point that Paul made earlier about the compliance and the processes from different banks. Now, I know we have a lot of listeners who work in banks, and they're always interested in comparing different banks, or at least different countries. I imagine that you've gone through a lot of these processes with banks. You have to comply to the bank's policies on data and processing and all of that. Now, which country do you think has the most demanding banks, and which has the most easiest to work with?
It's a very difficult question. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't worked with all the banks in all countries. I mean, what I can tell you is our first client was Deutsche Bank. It took us 18 months and 8 teams across the globe to be onboarded as an approved vendor. That's not optimal, right? So it was, you can question the sanity of a Bankable team to wait for 18 months in pre-sales to get somewhere. But that was our decision. Now it goes faster. I think in terms of, I would say in terms of compliance, our platform is here to reinforce your rules, not to change. So in fact, it's we're curious. We want to know what we need to reinforce. Yeah. And as it's a platform, I think we might do it even better than the bank, because if you need to onboard one by one a corporate, with us, it will be bulk onboardment with the rules of the bank at the core of the platform. So it's I mean, I don't think we are losing. We're probably winning here compared to the traditional process. I would say that the UK, I think it's not the banks, it's the regulator they report to, and the FCA has been, quite advanced. And then there's always surprises. Sometimes the French, they do things that are quite innovative. Same for the German. So it's difficult to have something categoric, because sometimes you see the Luxembourgese regulator, they come with great ideas, they're first, or even the German, or the Belgium. So I think it's there's always surprises, because in fact they report to the Ministry of Finance. So if they've got a Ministry of Finance that is 40 years old, things will change. You'll have a very aggressive regulator with crazy new ideas. So it depends on who's the Ministry of Finance, actually. Who's the boss?
Okay. I actually want to we're heading towards the end of the episode. Another fantastic discussion. Give you another, I don't know if it's a complicated, easy, or a difficult question, but going back to our bank, right? We're now talking about the bank that we're going to build, the Fintech Daydreaming Bank. And like you said, you start off from the business case. You talk to your clients about what is their business case and is it going to fly, because you want to build a partnership over 5 to 10 years. So you must have had an awful lot of these discussions with potential hopeful fintechs and entrepreneurs that want to build a bank. They have this idea, we're going to become a bank, we're going to become a fintech, we're going to disrupt. Now here sits Ville and I work in consulting, Ville works in a bank. How would you want us to, or how would you recommend to us would be a good business case for the Fintech Daydreaming Bank? What would you want to hear from us as a good storyline for that future 5-year partnership that would make us all rich?
Well, I will go back to what I said earlier. I will respect your brand and your distribution, and I like to know everything about it. So are you connected to 100 jurisdictions where there's 1,000 people everywhere? So what will be the distribution? What will be the attractiveness of the brand, and who will be the team? Yeah, in fact, it's like we're like an investor in our client, because so in fact there's always surprises, sometimes good surprises. Of course, if you tell me we'll have 100,000 members, year one, then 500,000, and year 3, 1 million. That's all the business cases we receive. Therefore, I'll be suspicious. If you tell me it's 10,000, 20,000, and if it's a bit shy, I will investigate, because usually people that are shy with their forecast, they're conservative, but they could do more. So it's a dialogue. It's a human interaction. It's not about Excel or things like that. There's people you like, others you don't like, and sometimes we make we want to be part of it. We want to be part of the story.
Yeah. Except for Ville's idea of cryptocurrencies across the world, right?
Well, you can create a bank regulated in this case. Yeah, I mean, we'll be happy to work with you, because we haven't found this bank yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But like I said, time flies when we're having fun. It's been a fantastic discussion. I don't know, Ville, if you've got any last questions to Eric before we round up.
No, we of course had to bring up the crypto topic. It's been hotly debated lately with the volatility in the market and a lot of things happening in that space. So of course had to ask that half jokingly, of course knowing the answer already. But yeah, again, we keep
answer.
So again, fantastic discussion. Thank you for this.
It's been a really good discussion. I think, Ville, we're one step closer towards building the Fintech Daydreaming Bank, focused on financial wellness, money management, and inclusiveness, right?
Well, a bank for the fintech nerds. I mean,
a bank for the fintech nerds. Absolutely, yes. So before we round off, Eric, for all of our listeners out there that's now become very interested in Bankable, interested in having a continued ongoing discussion with you and your team, how can they reach you? How can they find out more, and how can they educate themselves on Bankable?
So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. So I think you could share the link. They can go to our website, and I remain extremely open. I mean, I'm always I can't cope with thousands of requests, but I try to spend time with with a lot of people, actually. So I'm always curious. I think if you are a bank in your audience, I'll be delighted to have a chat, because we could explain how would be delighted to tell you how you can retaliate against fintech or even partner with fintech. Because in fact, the big thing is that EMI for me is a weak status because you can't do credit. A credit institution, there's a way for big banks to capture the market by adding credit to the largest fintech. So that's where we'd like to help. We'll be happy to in fact speak to a banking intrapreneur to share ideas with them. So always welcome. Yeah.
Fantastic. And is there anything else that you think, Eric, you would have liked us to have asked or discussed?
No, I'm very. I like the energy and the fact that you obviously know you guys know each other very well. But it's no, I think you're a very good animator. I think we used the time. It was very pleasant, and I hope that will show in this episode 3.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's been fantastically good. So thank you very, very much, Eric, for joining us. Thank you for introducing us to Bankable and helping us to continue on the journey towards building the Fintech Daydreaming Bank, even if it will just only be in our dreams as we are Fintech Daydreaming, or maybe it becomes a reality one day. Let us know, listeners, if there's enough of you out there that really believe that we should build a bank, then help us on that journey. We're interested to see where this may lead. Apart from that, it's been a fantastic episode again, and thank you very much to all of our listeners. I think I'm about to cough. Whilst I cough, Ville, can you tell everybody where to press?
Yes. Again, as always, remember to hit that subscribe button on the podcast application or YouTube channel of your choice. And as always, leave us a review, a comment, especially if you have a 5-star review. We would really appreciate it. And leaving a comment will help people find our podcast and all the fantastic information from the guests that we're having on this podcast series. So with that being said, and Paul being busy coughing, I will say goodbye, thank you, and this has been Fintech Daydreaming.
This is Fintech Daydreaming.